Hi there, I'm Coach Amy, Precision Nutrition Certified Nutrition Coach with Results Fitness, and the recipe I have for you today is crockpot hamburger soup. So this one has a lot of ingredients, and I have my cheat sheet here with me, so bear with me. I already got started on the 1 pound of ground beef, so you could use ground beef, turkey, chicken, whatever you prefer. I am using lean ground beef today, so I already started cooking that. And in addition to that, this has a ton of veggies in it. So what I have here, I already diced and chopped all of these to have prepped and ready to go. Yellow onion, bell pepper, sweet potatoes, carrots, and celery. Now there is also green beans and kale in this recipe as well, but these don't get added until later on. When there's about 2 hours of cooking time left is when those items get added to the crock pot. So along with the veggies, there's also 2 cans of fire roasted tomatoes, 1 quart of low sodium beef broth, salt, pepper, Italian seasoning, and a can of tomato paste. So I'm going to get this stuff prepped and ready to go, put it in the crock pot, and then I'll walk you through the last few steps once you get closer to that 2 hours of cooking time remaining. So like I mentioned, I already have my ground beef started. It's pretty much cooked through at this point. So I'm going to add my already prepped and diced veggies to this. And I'm just gonna cook them for a few minutes just to soften them up a little bit, because again, this is going in the crock pot and it's gonna cook for many, many hours. So just enough to kind of, soften them a little bit, get the onions cooked, a little extra flavor. And then I'm going to season this with salt and pepper. I'll turn it up a little bit as well. All right, so salt, fresh ground pepper, and then I'm gonna put a little bit of that Italian seasoning in there now as well, probably about a teaspoon or so. All right, and we're just gonna let that cook for a few minutes. With the sweet potato, now if you're not a sweet potato fan, you can absolutely use white potatoes. They don't have to be sweet potatoes. You may notice that the potatoes I have in here are white, but they're actually Japanese sweet potatoes. So when you purchase them, they kind of have like a purplish skin on them, and they're white on the inside. They're a little milder than regular sweet potatoes, and I like to use it in recipes like this with the soup and whatnot. The way they're described is having a little bit of a nuttier flavor. So if you want to try something new, or you're not a fan of regular sweet potatoes, give the Japanese ones a try. They're very tasty. All right, so this is just going to cook for a few minutes. And you could also use any vegetables that you have on hand that you want to use up. I have zucchini that I might toss in there as well, just because it needs to be used and I don't want it to go to waste. These are the perfect type of recipes to use those items in. And no, this is going to be super thick. So this is almost going to be more like a stew than a soup. So if you want it more like a soup, just add more beef broth, to the consistency that you like. I like, heartier and thicker type soups, so I tend to use a little bit less. But you do you and what you enjoy eating. All right, I'm gonna add my garlic now too. I don't wanna let it cook as long as the rest of the stuff in here, so I'm gonna add it now. I'm a big garlic fan, so I'm gonna add a ton of garlic, because who doesn't love garlic? I always laugh when I see recipes that say, add 1 to 2 cloves, and I'm like, no, you need 10 to 12 cloves. I always assume it's a misprint and add my own. All right, so those are cooking up well. I'm going to get my crock pot ready. It's super massive and super heavy, so if you hear me grunting and struggling, it's just the crock pot. All right, so I'm gonna give those like 1 more minute. I'm gonna dump that in the crock pot, and then we're gonna add the beef broth, the diced tomatoes, and the tomato paste as well. And we're gonna make sure we mix that really well to help incorporate the tomato paste. And again, if you don't like thicker soups and you like it more soup-like, you can omit the tomato paste as well, or like I mentioned earlier, just add more of the beef broth. All right, so this is about where I want it. All right, and there's easily this is probably gonna make about 6 to 8 servings. just by looking at this and eyeballing it, I guarantee you're probably gonna get 3 to 4 servings of veggies with each serving, so that's an added bonus as well. All right, so I'm gonna turn this off. I'm gonna attempt to get this in here without making a mess, but I make no promises, or without burning myself. So far, so good. I don't want to jinx it and end up with half of this on the floor. Although my puppies would be happy. They always come. That's my cleanup crew. Whenever I'm done recording, they always come up to, you know, make sure they could snag anything that I dropped on the floor. All right, so I have all of that in here. And you do need a big crock pot for this too. All right, I'm going to add my tomatoes and beef broth. Super tongue-tied today. All right, I'm gonna mix this before adding the tomato paste, and then I'll mix it again after adding the tomato paste. Again, you wanna make sure you incorporate that in there because there's nothing worse than getting, you know, a huge bite of tomato paste in a bowl of soup. And I like to start with about half the can. So this is a 6-ounce can, so about half of it. And I'll stir all of that in there. When I check this in a while, you know, after a few hours, I'll see what the consistency is and adjust as needed. All right, so I'm gonna mix that in there really good. And you could kind of see too, just look for big visible clumps of the tomato paste. Once you put it into a liquid, it does disperse pretty well. All right, and that's all set. So I'm gonna cook this on low for probably about 6 hours. If I were cooking this on high, probably about 4. So what you wanna do, you know, when there's about, if you're cooking it on high, I would say an hour prior to it being finished. If you're cooking it on low, 2 hours prior to it being finished before adding in those green beans and kale, because you don't want them to get mushy. So that's why you're not adding them in from the beginning. So what I did was I had a bag of fresh green beans. I chopped it into thirds, so they're in a little bit smaller bite-sized pieces. My kale I bought already shredded, so that's one less step I have to worry about. So I'm gonna let this cook for a few hours, add those final 2 ingredients, and you have soup for days and days and days. So this is a great meal prep recipe as well. If you're feeding a large crowd or you want to have some lunches throughout the week, some easy dinners, it freezes well, so freeze any leftovers to have for future meals. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this recipe. If you do try it out, give me some feedback, let me know what you think, and have a great rest of your day.